Good afternoon from the Circus Sports at the Mint Kentucky Downs studio. I'm Ross Johnston. Tennessee lost a tough one last night in the Music City Bowl 30-28 to Illinois. Deshaun Bishop had 2 touchdowns on the night, and the Vols had a kick return touchdown from Jakeem Dodson, but it was not enough. Vanderbilt is currently at the half in the ReliaQuest Bowl against Iowa. The Commodores trail 14-3 in that one as quarterback Diego Pavia is 14 of 20 for 110 yards. Vanderbilt has only ran for 8 yards in the first half. The college football playoff quarterfinal kicks off tonight at 6:30 as Miami and Ohio State face off in the Cotton Bowl. Tomorrow's games are as follows: Oregon and Texas Tech at 11 a.m. in the Orange Bowl, Alabama and Indiana at 3:30 in the Rose Bowl, and Ole Miss and Georgia face off at 7 in the Sugar Bowl. Lastly, in a few pieces of NFL news, Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson was back on the practice field today after suffering a back contusion in Week 16. His status is still up in the air as the Ravens have an elimination game Sunday night in Pittsburgh. Steelers tight end Darnell Washington was placed on season-ending IR with a broken arm, and Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin provided an update on TJ Watt that was optimistic that he could return for Sunday night's game, as Watt has been dealing with a punctured lung from a dry needling session a few weeks ago. For all your foundation repair, waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door and broadcasting live from the 104.5 The Zone Circus Sports Studios, Kentucky's largest sports book, can now be found at Circus Sports at Kentucky Downs. 615-737-1045 is the number. Vandy versus Iowa, the ReliaQuest Bowl. Not going so well for the old Commodores. Now, they're a second-half team traditionally. You can never count them out. But 14-3, the Iowa defense has just smothered the Vanderbilt rushing attack.
It's that Big Ten ball right there.
It's some Big Ten ball. They're bringing them down in the muck and the mire, but never count Vanderbilt out. That's the one of the first things you should have learned about this Vanderbilt team under Clark Lee and Diego Pavia at the beginning of this year, when they've mounted many second-half comebacks. So just don't count them out. We'll keep you updated as that game progresses. All right. Today's a big coaching mega show. We'll preview a little bit Jaguars.
You want to tell them how many pieces of audio you got for today?
I mean, I don't want to overwhelm the masses.
Okay.
But we do have 22 different audio clips from a multitude of head coaches.
It's good.
Because I want to inform the people. Sometimes, like, you can hear me speak about people. You can hear about, I heard this on some podcast, and this is what it sounded like, and this is what they said. But to me, it's about the energy that these coaching candidates bring, the different personalities that these coaching candidates bring, and the different philosophies that you need to hear. Different stories, different ways to tell stories. And that's important because this Tennessee Titans job is the biggest opening for the Tennessee Titans that they have to fill, or I wouldn't say biggest, most important. And so it's so important to get this right. And this is why, when I really come down to it, this is why I'm kind of lukewarm on Robert Saleh. This is why I'm lukewarm on Matt Nagy. Like, they're fine. I know everybody is like over their skis about Robert Saleh. It's funny, you could post an article about Robert Saleh and Titans fans would be like, oh man, this is awesome, blah, 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 blah. And then you could post one about Matt Nagy and they would like, well, it looks like the agent really is doing some damage control on Matt Nagy. And I'm like, well, I mean, they're just saying, essentially, they accepted bad situations and went to what has kind of been historic, tough, but at the time, kind of bad franchise. Like Ben Johnson doing what he's doing in Chicago is pretty remarkable. And you look at Aaron Glenn and you're like, we know Aaron Glenn's a better coach than what he's put out there for the Jets, but it's something about the Jets. And he's doing crazy stuff. Like, he's out there in press conferences doing just as crazy stuff as Robert Saleh did in New York. Like, the stuff that something must just be going on in the Jets. Like, I don't know if you just, like, contract stupidity or word vomit or paranoia as soon as you walk into the New York Jets facility, but something is going on up there.
Well, I just thought it was hilarious. It was still like week 9, and Aaron Glenn wouldn't announce who his starting quarterback would be. And it's like, dude, y'all are 0-8.
Well, then he backtracks, has to constantly backtrack stuff, and like he doesn't know how to handle the media. Then you have Robert Saleh like trying to confiscate phones, and having to have Will McDonald not even entertaining the idea of drafting Jackson Smith and Jigba, like stuff like that. Just kind of is like maybe it's just New York, because Woody Johnson.
It's that Hudson River water.
Yeah, because like Woody Johnson lets his people make decisions on the draft, but then he goes and makes fun of their decisions behind their back, which can cause a little bit of paranoia. But also, has Woody Johnson been right the whole time that to make fun of the people in charge for their bad drafts? I mean, just think about it. Woody Johnson may actually be right. Maybe Madden is the way to go. I don't know.
I don't know. I think Woody. I mean, there's been a lot of change in New York in Florham Park over the years, coaches, GMs, players, and there's been one constant, and they have yet to really ever turn it around.
I think a great way to kind of figure out if a second stint for a head coach is deserved is to hear what they learned from their first go round, to hear how they would do things differently. And there is the Kelsey Brothers podcast. What's it called, actually?
New Heights.
New Heights. They had Matt Nagy on over the summer, and it's a really great interview the whole way through. And it really lets you see Matt Nagy's kind of like personality. Someone called him an old head today, Ross, and he's only 1 year older than Robert Saleh and Cliff Kingsbury. He's 47.
He looks a little older, like just appearance-wise, but yeah.
Chicago will do that to you.
I mean, New York.
He's a Jersey guy too, I think, or he's from up in the Northeast, I think, somewhere.
If Saleh had any hair on his head, it'd probably be gray by now after dealing with all that.
Yeah. So here's what Matt Nagy said on what he would do differently and how, if he could go back in time, what he would do differently.
100% the relationships with the entire team, so the defense and the special teams, and then understanding, making sure that those guys know I have the pulse of who they are and what's going on. And so, like in 2018 when we got to Chicago, there just wasn't a lot of energy. You know, they needed a little bit of positivity going around, and I think like what we had to do was create that culture. And the only way you do that is by winning. But you got to build trust, and you got to build relationships with the players so they do trust you. And the only way to do that is to be around them. Like, you can sit there and talk X's and O's all you want, but if you're not around them and they don't know who you are and you don't know who they are, it won't work. And I think, like, for me, my best time to do that was to jump into meetings where I couldn't do that as a coordinator, you know? So like as a head coach, I can jump into the special teams meeting. I can jump into Coach Fangio's defensive meetings. And then when we're out stretching, like I would walk around and talk to all the defensive guys. And then I would meet with some of the guys one-on-one and try to build a rapport with those leaders. And I think, like, you know, as the 3 years after that went on till 2021, where I look back and reflect and say, man, I wish I would have done this better. It's staying on top of those relationships that we built. And, you know, like, new players come in, old players leave. I probably didn't do a good enough job of creating that bond with those players and sustaining it so that when you hit a tough patch, you can get through that, you know, get through the lows. And I think, like, that's where I needed to be better. And I reflect on that a lot. And, you know, you guys both know me. Like, I'm an outgoing person, and I feel like it's, you know, it's important to have a good relationship with guys and let them trust you, but you gotta be able to sustain that. And so as a head coach, for me, that was my biggest thing that I really look back on now and like, damn, I wish I would have done a better job there. And you know, you learn from it. You learn from those mistakes.
And so, like, you learn. That's a tangible thing that he has latched onto, and that's been kind of even at when he was quarterbacks coach over at the Super Bowl press conference right after he got fired with Chicago. That's something else he also touched on almost immediately after. I mean, that is a tangible change that he wants to make, that he recognizes, hey, I didn't do things quite well. I mean, he was only a coordinator and quarterbacks coach before getting the job for 5 years. I mean, Brian Callahan had a lengthier resume than Matt Nagy. Clearly in over his head, right? Like, and he kind of went through the thing where he's trying to please everybody and listen to everybody. He wasn't really staying true to himself. And what worked year one, he kind of let that stuff go to the wayside. And that can happen to a coach. Okay? But you know why? Because Curtis put sounds, Curtis in the chat, I know, has been a little anti-Nagy, but like, this does sound good. But that's also why someone can learn from their mistakes. You have to recognize your mistakes to learn from them.
Yeah, well, and again, and I mean, neither of us are saying it should be Nagy. We're just,
right.
That's who we're talking about.
I'm very lukewarm on Nagy.
Yeah, I think, it's refreshing to hear a coach say that because ego goes into a lot of stuff in professional sports, especially in the National Football League. And, it could be easy for him to say, I was with the Bears, who in the modern era have not been a great organization. We went to the playoffs twice while I was there, and they let me go. Like, do you really think I was the problem? But instead of going that route, he looks at what he could have done better and stuff that he did, mess up on to a degree, and is, public about that and takes accountability with it in order to hopefully improve if he lands another head coaching job somewhere in the future.
Yeah. Like I said, not trying to sell people on Nagy. Because Jalel's like, stop trying to sell people on Nagy. I'm literally telling you, critical listening skills Jalel has lacked in the chat for a while now, I've noticed. I'm lukewarm on Nagy. But what I'm saying is, everybody who's hot on Robert Saleh, here's Robert Saleh's answer on what he would do differently at his next stop as head coach.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I do differently. My top, one of the biggest things I do is I'm going to call. I'd like to call it. I feel like when you're immersed in the game as a play caller, I think it brings out the emotion in me that gets me excited and keeps me connected to all the players and keeps me connected to the game a little bit more. So yeah, it'd definitely that'd be the number one thing I would change.
That sounds a lot like ego.
Love that little music in the background.
Oh, yeah.
Too,
I don't know why Josina Anderson's podcast, The Exhibit, has that throughout the whole episode.
Oh, that was on the podcast?
Yeah, that was Josina Anderson's YouTube. And that's music set there the whole time.
I would have thought that was ESPN or something.
No. And it's a 22-minute podcast or 32-minute podcast. And it's literally all it's I mean, that music's there. But that's what he would do differently. Nothing about the paranoia, nothing about this. He wants more control. And he's under the guise of like, well, I feel connected to the players. But Matt Nagy's like, well, I think I want to be a CEO type head coach. I want to communicate with everybody, touch everybody. I'll let the play calling duties go somewhere else, is what was said yesterday in the Athletic article. But Robert Saleh is like, no, I want more control. And I'm like, I don't know about that.
Well, that's interesting to me because, Jeff Ulbrich was his defensive coordinator in New York. And that was never really the problem in New York. Now, the defense fell off a cliff after Saleh got fired.
Yeah.
And Ulbrich had to be not only play caller for the defense, but game manager. They fell off a cliff. But, 2023, they had, I would argue, the best defense in the league considering the circumstances. So that's interesting. You get like wanting to feel more ingratiated into the team and the culture, especially during the game as a head coach. If you're not calling plays and just being a game manager, it can be kind of hard, I guess. But that ain't the area I would say like to change stuff in. I mean, that was working well for you there.
Right. And what I like about both these guys from, like, if I were looking at them to interview them and ask questions, they both experienced so much adversity as a head coach. But when you have a chance to tell people what you would do differently, that's not really the answer you really want to hear in my mind. Like, number one is, well, I want to call plays. Even though I wasn't a very good head coach, now I want to add an extra layer of responsibility as a head coach because I mean, let's be honest here. A 3.357 win percentage, you were not a good head coach. And now you think the way to solve that is by taking on more responsibility? I don't know. That just doesn't jive for me.
Yeah, it sounds good hearing it. Like you want your head coach to be more involved and he wants to be more involved. It sounds good. But when you look at it logistically, it really, based on what happened with his time in New York, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Now, again, you don't know who his defensive coordinator hire would be if he was hired here as the head coach. And he would have his imprint on the defense no matter what, right? It's still that solid style defense. But again, I'm not, it doesn't show a lot of self-reflection like, Nagy did. It's more of just like, I get more control, more power, things are going to go better. And it's like, well, I don't know about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll say this. We'll talk more about Matt Nagy and Robert Saleh, but just want to say 75-yard touchdown pass from Diego Pavia puts, and then, of course, there was a larger one, or not larger, but another one from Gronowski earlier, scores 21-10. But it's almost like that. Iowa scored, and then all of a sudden I look, and in a few minutes, Vandy scored.
You're telling me Iowa has 21 points and there's a lot of time
right
left?
now. A lot of time left, 21-10.
Maybe Iowa's coming different this year.
Just maybe, but also don't count out Vanderbilt. That was a quick touchdown pass. All right, coming up next, more Matt Nagy, more Saleh, and more coaching candidates for Tennessee Titans. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
Smashville hockey. Around here, it can sound like a language of its own. But hey, if you can pronounce Demumbrian, then names like Yossi, Shea, and Marchessault will roll right off the tongue. Nashville Predators, only in Smashville.
One of the largest sports books east of the Mississippi, Circa Sports Kentucky, is now open. Catch all your favorite games on an 80-foot screen with stadium-style seating and live VSiN broadcast daily. Circa Sports, now open at the Mint Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
My dad and I used to golf together all the time, but when he hurt his back, it was over.
To have your son want to spend time with you is amazing. That's why my chronic back pain has been so heartbreaking. Surgery, fused bones, long recovery. No way, not for me. A friend recommended stem cells, so I gave Kellum Stem Cell Institute a call.
I'm glad you're out on the course.
Yeah, it's really good.
Call the Kellum Stem Cell Institute today. Swing still looks just okay though.
Selling your home can be stressful, but it doesn't have to be. Get a guaranteed offer from Mark Spain Real Estate. There are no showings, no open houses, no stress. Work with the #1 real estate team in the U.S. and close with confidence. Go to markspain.com today.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045. Let's start wrapping up our talk on Matt Nagy and Robert Saleh. I do want to get into the philosophy of Matt Nagy and young quarterbacks, because obviously he had Mitch Trubisky, he had Justin Fields. Nobody's been able to do anything with them anyway, but the only real quarterback success he has is Patrick Mahomes, and how much he was only there for 1 year with Patrick. Like, how much does that really count? You know, like, how much of that is really him? So let's hear from Matt Nagy at the Super Bowl a couple of years ago on quarterbacks and playing freely and what he thinks about that philosophy.
We live in this world of instant gratification right now. I'll start there. And so wherever we are, you see a lot of these young quarterbacks that come in that are forced to play and do well right away. You have the old stories of other quarterbacks 5, 10, 15 years ago, even some more recently, that have had some time to sit and get to see. These NFL defenses are so much different than college. And so you need to, be able to adjust and adapt to the player and how they can grow. But you also got to be able to go through the highs and the lows together. And so to your point, I mean, it's in this league. It's not just Justin and Chicago. It's in this league in general. How do you do that, navigate through that, and staying together, staying positive, and going through that with Patrick as a rookie, letting him see Alex living that, and then my experiences in Chicago with Mitchell, and there's a lot to it. But yeah, I think staying together, being positive, but also understanding that instant gratification is real. So how do you get to that point?
I mean, I will say this. I've also read the 2018 Chicago Bears offensive book where this guy breaks down all the plays. Matt Nagy knows offenses. Now, whether he is to blame or not to blame, credit, whatever, who cares? That is, we don't know what he's actually, we kind of know what he's doing in Kansas City, because it says right here, at Kansas City, he relays play calls from Reid to Mahomes on the sideline, draws up game plans, and influences the offensive philosophy. I mean, what can we really take away from what is his, what is not? Who knows? But it does show that he does have a fundamental understanding of how to work within a quarterback and a young quarterback, because I know that he did that with Trubisky. It's just that Trubisky probably hit a ceiling, and maybe other things got in the way of a head coach doing what he was set out to do. So you got to kind of figure out, see, this is why I'm kind of very lukewarm on Matt Nagy, is a sense of, I think he can do everything, and I think he's learned everything that he needs to learn. And there are stuff from Kansas City that we can hear him talk about right now. This is Matt Nagy on what he's learning now that he was back in Kansas City.
A lot, and the difference is this, is that when I was first in Kansas City for my 5 years, I never looked at how coach led the team in meetings, practices, etc. as a head coach. Always as a position coach. I go to Chicago for 4 years. I'm a head coach. I'm now back here in this role as a position coach. And every meeting, whether it's a staff meeting, a player meeting, a practice, something that goes on, I now look at it from the head coach's eyes. And again, I'm using that to help me be better. And I failed in a lot of areas, but at the same, I know for a fact it's going to make me stronger. I promise you that. I'm telling you that right now. It's going to make me stronger, and that's okay. But at the same point in time, I have no resentment towards anybody. I love where I'm at right now. I've had so much fun this year, being in that quarterback room, being with the coaching staff in Kansas City, being with the fans in Kansas City, everybody. And again, it's rejuvenating, and I just got to learn from it.
So, he learned a lot in Kansas City, and he's learning a lot currently in Kansas City. And I know people are like, this is the worst timing for Matt Nagy to put his, to go out here and try to be a head coaching candidate and sell himself, because the Kansas City Chiefs did just miss the playoffs, ignoring the fact that they have so many freaking injuries on offense and all that kind of stuff. They're missing the playoffs. Get it, totally understand it, that this is a hard sell. But how much of that is really on him, right? Like, how much of that is on Andy Reid? How much is that? A lot of people in Kansas City think a lot of it is on Brett Veach. But again, better head coaching record than both people that people want, Cliff Kingsbury and Robert Saleh. right? Like, I mean, he has a better head coaching win-loss record with Mitch Trubisky and Justin Fields. And so I kind of look at it that way as like, okay, he has won. As soon as he got back to Kansas City in 2022, they go to 3 straight Super Bowls, winning 2 straight. And that's with Matt Nagy as OC. So, like, I don't think Matt Nagy's to cause for the Super Bowls, and I don't think it's Matt Nagy to cause for the playoffs. When you're a non-play calling OC at Kansas City or some of these teams, you shouldn't get any of the credit, but you also shouldn't really get any of the blame because it really goes down to the play calling. There's something Diana Rossini wrote about a couple of weeks ago. Something team presidents, general managers, and even owners have consistently shared with me over the years. One of the hardest traits to evaluate in interviews is a coach's ability to handle conflict. That's why phrases like leader of men get thrown around so easily. But actually identifying someone who can manage adversity, command a room, and navigate difficult moments is far more challenging. Far more challenging, which is true, right? Like, that is totally true. And I think Robert Saleh, and we'll end it with this pretty much, Robert Saleh kind of puts it best on there not being a manual for first-time head coach. So nobody like Robert Saleh and Matt Nagy in this coaching cycle, outside of maybe Mike McCarthy, really has the experience that these two guys went through and the adversity they had to overcome. And that could be a huge selling point for this team. Here's Robert Saleh, and there not being a manual for a first-time head coach.
There's no playbook for a first-time head coach, right? It's kind of no matter how prepared you think you are, you're still going to get thrown some curveballs that you weren't prepared for. I think of my first year, God rest his soul, Coach Knapp passes away in a biking accident a week before training camp. There's nothing in the head coach manual that tells you how to handle situations that way. And you go in and to me, the biggest thing you can do as a first-time head coach is to just stick to your plan. You've put together a plan, be able to evolve and bob and weave, but the curveballs are going to happen. Things will happen that were unexpected, but most, if not all, of those curveballs can be answered with your philosophy on what you believe in. And so that's the biggest thing, is just stay true to yourself, stay authentic, always think about the locker room first, and just know that things that you were not prepared for will happen. It's gonna happen, and just know that you can handle it. Coach Kubiak, when I first got the job, shot me a text and he said, "Hey, Saleh, if I can give you one piece of advice, it'd be, it'll get done." That was it. It'll get done. So no matter how big the stack of papers get, no matter how long the to-do list is, it's all going to get done. And so just stay in the moment, stay calm, stay within your philosophy, stay authentic, and then you'll be just fine.
So I think that's a great way to look at it, right? Like, you stay true to yourself, you stay true to your identity and all, and whatever. I love that. I just wonder, I look at it and I go, okay, Robert Saleh, Matt Nagy, there's just as much risk with them as taking an Anthony Weaver, a Chris Shula, a Jeff Hafley, a Jesse Minter, a Clint Kubiak. Like, there's a considerable amount of risk with both these guys. And there's really, outside of maybe Mike McCarthy, who is the probably safest and likely most boring out of all the candidates, but he's definitely the safest candidate to get. But with Robert Saleh and Matt Nagy, then comes down to, okay, they've done the adversity. They've gone through ups and downs. Nagy was much better managing his ups and downs than Robert Saleh, or his surroundings, I should say, than Robert Saleh was. And there was a lot of things that Matt Nagy learned. Don't know really the things that Robert Saleh learned. He only gave us one thing, and that was that he wanted more control. So I kind of look at it and I go, okay, they both have their pros and cons. Now, the fan base's perspective on Robert Saleh is, but he could get a great OC. Okay, why are we saying that Mike LaFleur is a great OC and we don't even know if Mike McDaniel's going to be fired or not? So you want to, okay, if let's say the Dolphins retain Mike McDaniel, do you still want Robert Saleh? So are you interested in him? Mike LaFleur, who was pretty terrible as a play caller, and everybody's like, well, he's at the Rams now. Yeah, with Matt Stafford, Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, and Sean McVay's calling the plays. Why in the world does anybody even care or want Mike LaFleur? But you'll likely get Mike LaFleur because guess who was best man in Matt LaFleur's wedding? And guess whose wedding Matt LaFleur was best man in? Robert Saleh. So guess who he's probably going to bring with him? Mike LaFleur. Oh, man, that was a great offense over the Jets. Play calling was atrocious. Do you really maybe want a guy that hired Todd Downing and Keith Carter? Because I have to say, Robert Saleh did. I'm just saying. I mean, he hired those guys after what they did in Tennessee. He was like, let me put those guys on my staff. Maybe you get Clay Kubiak, who is the non-play calling offensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. And maybe, even though that Clint Kubiak had called two offenses before coming to Seattle, maybe you could duplicate the Seattle thing. But then you're getting a first-time offensive play caller at the helm. Is that what you want? Maybe it is. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying it can't work. You may have to do that. Maybe you can coax Adam Stenavich away from Green Bay, who's probably due for not only just an offensive coordinator position where he calls plays, but a head coaching position. I mean, he's been in a couple of cycles. Maybe it's Brian Fleury. Maybe it's Bobby Slowick. But those names excite you? Adam Stenavich is probably the only name on that list. Maybe John Embry, who's over at the Miami Dolphins with Mike McDaniel. That's a guy that I could entertain. But, like, those are the names that really make it worth hiring Robert Saleh. And Matt Nagy's is slightly better. You can maybe get Eric Bieniemy. That would interest you. Maybe you can get Mike Kafka. That probably doesn't interest most people. And, you know, he's also, I'm pretty certain he's a vampire. Maybe you can get Doug Peterson, who took a year off after the Jacksonville Jaguars. That could be a guy that could be your OC. Because Matt Nagy's not calling plays, so this one is pretty important too. But those guys have relationships with them. Maybe it's Dave Ragone or Bill Lazor or John DeFilippo who Nagy has relationships with. Again, those OCs are a lot better than what Robert Saleh could bring outside of if Mike McDaniel actually gets fired. And we don't even know if it's a guarantee that he could bring Mike McDaniel. Because when he got fired from the Jets, he didn't get a job temporarily over in Miami. He got a job up in Green Bay. So what will actually happen in this situation? And then you look at the defensive coordinators for Matt Nagy. I like Dave Merritt, who's the defensive backs coach over there at Kansas City. I think really highly of him. There's Deshae Townsend, Joe Cullen, the defensive line coach over there as well. They're probably all due. But, you know, Matt Nagy's team was at its best when it had a Vic Fangio. He's not available. Who's that out there? Maybe they keep Denard Wilson if they go Matt Nagy. Maybe that's worth it to some people. I don't know if I'm really sold. So that's why these two guys, I'm just like, very lukewarm. That they feel a little bit like consolation prizes. And what I mean by that is that, like, they may be fine at their next stop. I would trust Nagy a little bit over Saleh just because history has shown us if you're successful at one stop, or at least above 500 at one stop, you'll be above 500 at your next stop. History hasn't really been kind to those that are sub 400 at one stop and coming to the next stop. But to me, I think there's so many better options than these two guys. And that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know necessarily if Robert Saleh can build a culture. And I'll be honest, I don't know if Matt Nagy can build a culture. Like, we've seen their teams deteriorate into madness right below in front of our eyes. We've seen questionable decisions about how to handle the quarterback situation at both of these guys. How they communicate to players, how they communicate to their staff. We've seen those issues. So again, I don't think Matt Nagy's as bad as what everybody else says. I don't think Robert Saleh is as good as what everybody else says. I think they're the same coach and they come with the same risks. And they're just on different sides of the ball.
I'll play devil's advocate real quick for both of them because they're not my guys either. But I think there's one thing for both of them that is good. I think one for Matt Nagy, and you kind of touched on it. He's been with Andy Reid for years now.
Yeah.
And, you know, Andy Reid, but outside of Bill Belichick, in this generation, I don't think there's a better NFL head coach than Andy Reid. Now,
I'd agree.
I think, Matt Nagy seems to be someone who's in a very self-reflective mode right now as he tries to get in, to another organization as the head coach. So to be able to take stuff from Andy Reid, that excites me a lot. If we did get Matt Nagy, just that aspect of it, not my guy, but that is one good thing I think you could, take solace in if he is the guy. For Robert Saleh, it's more the comparison to his Jets and our Titans right now is like, for the Jets with Saleh, their team, the best players on their team and arguably the leaders of their team were all young guys and really young guys who kind of rose to stardom, quote unquote, in the NFL, very quickly. Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, Breece Hall, Quinnen Williams. Those are all young guys at the time, at least. And I'm not saying, all of our best players are young guys, but I think, a lot of our main players next year are going to still be young guys, Cam, Gunner, Kevin Winston, Chim, Ellick, whoever it may be. And, obviously Jeff is the leader of the team being an older guy. But I think, him having gone through that experience and it not necessarily worked out well, probably learning from that and applying it to a similar situation could be a good thing for Robert Saleh.
Could be. What you're hoping for with both these guys is that they're not the guys that they presented themselves to be or ended up being at their previous stops.
Yes, just growth,
and that's a huge risk.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest. I tell my wife's friends all the time that are trying to change their boyfriends and for the better. I'm like, we don't change. We may mature, but we don't inherently, men do not inherently change.
Mm-hmm.
They can say that they changed, right? Matt Nagy can say all this stuff. And listen, he also got a 45-page report about all the things that everybody thinks he's done wrong in his life. Like, he may have gotten the wake-up call of all wake-up calls. But we won't necessarily know until it's actually put into practice. Let's go to the phones real quick. Titanomics wants to talk about the head coach. Titanomics, you're on with Cover 2.
Thank you, gentlemen, for the call. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I think Shula would be a great defensive-minded coach. I think we need a defensive-minded coach because he can help Cam with, multiple defenses and how to manipulate the defenses. Yep. And also he'll be great with free agent acquisitions, bringing them in. And then also, my bad, my Bluetooth switched over. He also can, help with drafting great draft picks. We need all of that. So I think Shula for me.
Hey, I agree. Chris Shula's high on my list. We'll get to Chris Shula and a few others next hour. I'll give you guys my top three. We'll hear from Chris Shula and the other two in the top three as well. But coming up next, let's talk about Clint Kubiak and Jesse Minter. I don't know about these guys. It's Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045. We're talking Titans head coaches. Lukewarm on Nagy and Shula. I think I'm out.
Saleh, you mean?
Yeah, Saleh, sorry. Nagy and Saleh, not lukewarm on Shula. Nagy and Saleh. I think I'm out on Kubiak and Jesse Minter. And I love the idea of Clint Kubiak's offense being here, right? I mean, what he is able to do and create space and do all that kind of stuff in Seattle has been really remarkable. And he did similar things in New Orleans. He did similar things in Minnesota with his other 2 previous stops. So he's got 3 years of play calling experience. But it's also just kind of 3 years of play calling experience. And he's done it with Justin Jefferson. He's done it with Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like, he's done it with some good players. And then you kind of saw with New Orleans, it's all right. But, I mean, which team are we closer to? And I think my problem with Clint Kubiak, and someone actually asked me this, a couple of weeks ago in my DMs, Tyler Coupler. And he goes, I don't know if Clint Kubiak can command a room. And I think that's where I'm at with both of these guys in a way. It's like, listen, press conferences are an entirely different animal. You don't win or lose based on what your press conference is. But there's something about Clint Kubiak at a press conference that makes me want to go up there and just slap the crap out of him. I don't know what it is, but it's just like, dude, wake up. Like, have some Celsius energy drinks or something. Like, do some shots. Like, loosen up. He is so boring. It's worse than Bobby Sloak to me. And I thought Bobby Sloak was a bad interview. Like, I don't know. Like, Clint Kubiak just seems a little boring.
Well, I'm glad you said it. I know we can get more into it as the show goes on, but I've always, people always talk there's a certain look to a head coach. I don't really think that's the case. I mean, like, having a dude that looks like a Vrabel or Dan Campbell is great and all. That might help. I don't know, but not really. I think it's more, like you said, your ability to command a room. Look at all these guys in the Coach of the Year race right now. Vrabel, Mike McDonald, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. There's not one specific look to them, like physically, but they all command, take control. You hear it in their press conferences. They're running the show there, and they're very confident in what they're saying. Some of these guys, I hate to count them out based off of that, but like you're saying, some of these guys, you can just tell they're boring. They don't seem to have a ton of confidence in what they're saying. I mean, going back to the previous head coach we had here, that's kind of how it felt a good bit of the time.
Yeah, but Brian Callahan press conference is 100 times better. This is like if you gave Mike McCoy an elephant tranquilizer, that is a Clint Kubiak press conference. Like, how boring Mike McCoy is.
Callahan was not boring. It was more just, it seemed the lack of confidence seemed to show a little bit.
Right. And listen, that's what makes it so weird with Jesse Minter is like, he's been around the Harbaughs. He's been defensive coordinators at Indiana State, Georgia State, Vanderbilt, Los Angeles Chargers, Michigan. He can't be as boring as what he is in his press conferences or in his podcasts.
Being around the Harbaugh, those are some interesting dudes, I think.
Yeah, because they're interesting. I mean, they're
kooky a little bit.
Yeah, they're weird, right? But like Mike McDonald too is like, he has some personality to him. It may be like kind of laughable personality, I guess you could say. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen him mic'd up. It's just a funny to see like a leprechaun out there, firing up these big dudes, because that's what Mike McDonald looks like. There's someone like someone at the Seattle Seahawks press conferences shoots their video from the front row, and all you can see is Mike McDonald's head over the podium.
And I'm like,
you
showed me that the other day.
I mean, like, what are we doing here?
That was funny.
So, like, I don't know where I'm at on Jesse Minter specifically, but I do know that he knows football. Right? You don't get carried around by the Harbaughs and passed around by them if you don't know football. So let's hear from Jesse Minter on how he teaches defense.
Sometimes you over teach things, and there's a simplicity that you got to find, like a fine line between them really understanding it and, hey, here's really what we're trying to do, I don't need to know all that. That's great that you know all that. I don't need to know all that to play this position. And so just some of the older players had a chance to be around there, probably helped that as much.
And that's about as fiery as you're going to get from Jesse Minter. And maybe that works.
Don't love it.
Yeah. I just don't, is Jesse Minter actually Mike Macdonald? Is Jesse Minter a Harbaugh? I don't know. I'm willing to take a chance on Jesse Minter. I don't think I'm willing to take that chance on Clint Kubiak. And I know that seems counterintuitive, and here's a spoiler alert. I like a lot of the defensive head coaches, whereas a couple of years ago, I liked a lot of the offensive head coaches. I like a lot of the defensive head coaches. I just don't know about Clint Kubiak this year, and I don't know if it's the right time to have that kind of guy be your head coach. If this was a guy taking over for the Mike Mularkey back-to-back 9-7 teams, maybe so. I just don't know if this is the time for Clint Kubiak with this particular Tennessee Titans team. And I don't know if Clint Kubiak gets a shot anywhere. He'll get an interview, but I don't know if he's going to get a job anywhere soon.
Real chance.
Yeah, real chance.
Well, I'm a firm believer, too, and I think the best teams, they take on the personality of their head coach, and coordinators, that side of the ball takes on the personality of their coordinator. Minter, if that's all you're going to get, that doesn't excite me too much.
But his defense is played totally different, right?
I know, but
that's what's crazy.
But it's different, I guess, when you go from a defense to the entire team organization, right? You look at
that's the worry.
You look at a Mike Vrabel; those teams, always tough, tough. Sean McVay, his teams always play smart football, like Sean McVay does. Kyle Shanahan, those teams play smart and they play with a little bit of arrogance, a little bit of confidence and swagger to them. Some of these guys, again, I hate to say it, it sounds like a stupid reason to not want somebody, but that's how I feel.
But you're needing to build a culture, right?
Exactly.
And that's the thing where we're not in the room, we're not in the locker room. We always have to say that. But that's where I feel like these audio clips come in handy in these situations to kind of give you a glimpse of how are they speaking, here. Sure, they may be using more colorful language or this and that, in the practice meetings and all that kind of stuff. But you got to stand up through adversity. That's why Diana Rossini said that it was one of the most difficult things to figure out in an interview is how do you handle adversity? What adversity has Jesse Minter had? What adversity is Clint Kubiak had? How did they handle those? Those would be the questions that I would be asking. And I'll say this. The reason why I'm okay with taking a chance on Jesse Minter, because I'm banking on the pedigree. I'm banking on, if the Harbaughs love him, and Mike Macdonald, not a lot of people knew Mike Macdonald, but if I'm also looking at Mike Macdonald and say, okay, maybe Jesse Minter can be that guy. With Clint Kubiak, you're looking at, maybe I think Andrew Jonico, who is up with him over in Seattle, or Jake Peets, or even Justin Otten. Those three guys could be your offensive coordinator. He's cross-paths with them at multiple points. Maybe a guy like Eric Stootsville over at Miami, or maybe he brings his brother Clay Kubiak. I don't know. Maybe those guys will handle talking to the players and all that kind of stuff. Defensive coordinators, maybe he brings Aiden Durd to be a play caller who's not the play calling defensive coordinator. Mike Macdonald calls him up in there. Or maybe it's Carl Scott or Joe Woods, guys he's crossed paths with before. It would be I feel like Clint Kubiak is a little bit more of a more experienced version of Brian Callahan, as far as at least he's called plays for 3 years before he got the job. But I feel like he's a little bit closer to Brian Callahan than we give him credit for. For Jesse Minter, I don't know who he brings as his offensive coordinator, and that's a huge issue. Let's go through these names of people that he's crossed just real quick. And let me stop me if you've heard them.
Okay.
Bobby Ingram, we know that he's a wide receiver from Seattle. We know that one. Andy Bischoff, Matt Weiss, Thomas Hammock, Richard Angulo, David Rye, Joey Lynch, Ron Bellamy, Mike Hart, Kirk Campbell, Marcus Brady, Shane Day, Sanjay Law. You may have heard the last two.
The only one I think I know is Thomas Hammock. Wasn't he the Northern Illinois coach?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. So, I don't know. Who's the OC if it's Jesse Minter? And that's a huge question you have to answer. And is it one of those situations where you pull a Mike Vrabel, Matt LaFleur? I don't know.
I'm also still, and again, neither of us know. We're not in the building. We have no idea what the search is looking like right now. I find it hard to believe they will go with a first-timer again, just based off of this past experience that just happened. I know it's just one time, but it's the most recent time, and that can play into a lot of things, especially as we've said, this is probably the biggest head coaching hire in franchise history. You know, not trying to overplay that, but
right.
It is what it is. So I think it would take a lot for a first-time head coach candidate to get this job to really blow them away. And like you're saying, if you don't have the staff behind you that you can piece together to, back
you're even
up,
at a bigger disadvantage.
You're at a bigger disadvantage.
All right, coming up next, it's 31-24. Vanderbilt just scored.
Oh,
31-24 Iowa. Big shootout going on. 31-24 Iowa. Vanderbilt just scored. There is, wait a minute, that can't be right. It's 11 minutes and 26 seconds, I think, left in the fourth quarter. It says 46 seconds left in the fourth quarter.
The same
what's going on here?
And that's the fastest second half I've ever seen.
But either way, 31-24 Iowa versus Vanderbilt. Let's crack into my top 3 coaching candidates when we come back. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 is the number. We're talking Titans head coaching candidates. Should I start with number 3 or start with number 1?
Oh, number 3. Come on.
We're going to count down to my top 3 candidates.
Now, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Is this your original top 3? Like, did it change at all?
Oh, it's changed.
It's changed a lot?
I think there's only one person from my original top 3 in this top 3.
I bet I can guess somebody that's in it based on this past week, but I'll wait and see what you have to say.
Okay, so we're going to start with number 3 then. So if we're going to start with number 3, just so you know which audio we're going to, we're going with Anthony Weaver, defensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins, is number 3.
That's what I thought was going to sneak in there.
He snuck in. And at first, so Braden Gall, Nick Suss, Braden, pretty well sourced, has a good source inside the building. He was telling us rumors over on 440 Sports and a football show way before anybody else about the whole riff with Rand Carthon. And he was on it. He mentioned on their show about Anthony Weaver. And I was like, I texted him, I go, say psych. Like, I don't want Anthony Weaver. Why are we going for Anthony Weaver? And then I start doing research. I start thinking about it. I'm like, I see what he's kind of doing with Miami. I see his background. I'm like, okay, I think I could come around to an Anthony Weaver. I look at his potential staff, and I'm like, yeah, this is getting better and better. The more I research, the more I talk about it, I'm like, Anthony Weaver is a more experienced, likely maybe better version of what you initially got with Mike Vrabel. If you remember, Mike Vrabel was only an NFL defensive coordinator for 1 year, and it was the worst NFL defense that year that he was defensive coordinator. And I've listened to a lot of Anthony Weaver, and we talked about the Diana Rossini thing. Hardest thing to overcome is adversity. Hardest thing to figure out, can a coach overcome adversity? Anthony Weaver has the experience with players because he played as an experience, so he has the relations he can build. He's got a very, it's like a Barry White speaking voice, a cool, calm, collected thing, but then he can get pretty fiery. So you can tell that you're getting both sides, right? Like you can see the players are probably getting a fiery side, but you can see that, hey, he's pretty
calm and chaos.
Yeah. So let's hear from Anthony Weaver on how his NFL experience is a benefit to his players.
Yeah, I think initially, right off the cuff, you start to think, oh, well, I've walked in their shoes, right? There's a lot of things that they're going through on the field that I can relate to. What I think is actually gives me more like credibility with the guys are really the hardships I had, particularly like when I went to Houston, right? Pretty high paid free agent, and to be honest, like just failed there. Like didn't meet the expectations I set for myself. Inevitably got cut. In that moment as a player, you just think it's the worst thing to happen to you ever, right? And you're like, oh my God, like I'm a failure. Like how can I recover from this? But in hindsight, what you realized was a problem was actually a gift now that I'm coaching, because when I see players going through these similar troubles, and all of them do at some point, one time or another, I can help coach them through that. So outside of the things that I've been through and I've lived through on the field and know what they're going through there, I think the bigger place that I can be of assistance is in dealing with some hardships and failures they're going through.
I mean, this is a guy, played in the NFL. He's coached in the NFL for 16 seasons, and he's been a defensive coordinator now three seasons. One with the Houston Texans, 2 here at Miami the last 2 years. And I'm telling you, this is a guy, if you want someone that's going to build a culture and have a standard and be able to relate to players, that's the guy that was just talking. And he just told you how he could do that. It's hard. Leader of men gets thrown around. This guy,
that's one of them.
You can tell, because we're going to play more clips from Anthony Weaver. But also, he's been with Mike Macdonald. He's been with a ton of different defensive coordinators over the years, right? He's seen defensive coordinators like Rex Ryan, Mike Pettin, like he's learned under Mike Macdonald. He's seen and even played in so many defensive schemes that, like, when this guy says, I want to be multiple, or this guy says, I want to do this, he knows, because he's also knows what a player can handle in return, right? We'll hear from Anthony Campanelli later, but he said something I thought was pretty profound. Players understand in sound bites, not sentences. And that's kind of how Anthony Weaver coaches. Here's Anthony Weaver on his scheme being simple to digest, but difficult for the opposing offense.
What you're always trying to do is really have the illusion of complexity, where you move a couple pieces or you change some fronts and you show some disguises, and the offense is guessing, right? They can't be right. And all you're trying to do is make sure you're not the crappy poker player at the table. And we've just found a way to make it digestible for our players where it's simple for us but hard on everybody else.
What's the old saying? If you can't spot the fish, you're the fish at the card table.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's genius in the simplicity.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
I think about doing simple better.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
And trying to make that complicated.
I mean, I'm just telling you, like, this guy gets it. And because he's been through it, right? I'm sure he's seen a lot or had a lot of coaches that he's like, why are you doing it this way? Or why are you doing it that way? And I think that's kind of like one of the benefits of having Mike Vrabel is that he's also been through it. Like these former players, Dan Campbell, former player, right? Like he's kind of been through it all and seen it all. And Anthony Weaver is not as like bite your kneecaps as Dan Campbell, but he reminds me a lot of like the defensive version of Dan Campbell. Because you probably wouldn't have even known unless I bring it up. He was a tight ends coach and all that stuff because he seems such like a defensive head coach.
He like all-time voice rankings, he might be up there too. Like if I was watching a National Geographic documentary of like a lion hawking down a gazelle or a bear catching a fish, I would want Anthony Weaver to narrate that documentary. That would be incredible.
Yeah. Here's the thing. These last two clips are long, but these last two clips are so worth it because they give you us a real insight into the sidelines during a game. They give you real insight into what we were talking about, that adversity, right? Trying to figure out that adversity. That's what we're going to do. So this is Anthony Weaver on his, he talks how he has a new defense, right? New defense, a lot of new pieces on defense and the adversity that comes with that. And he gives a specific example after this year's Week 3 game versus Buffalo.
I do. I think our defense, while it'd be very easy to sit here and say, like, yeah, we should pick up right where we left off from a year ago. It's an entirely new defense, right? You have an entirely new group of safeties, right? Our 3 starting corners right now got here during training camp. Bradley Chubb did not play a year ago. Jalen Phillips played 3 games. We have 2 new starting rookies on defensive line, along with Sealer and Jordan Brooks and T-Dot. So we're definitely going through some growing pains. On the short week, right, here's what I'll say. They came out early, and I didn't think we were playing physical enough. I thought they punched us in the face early. Our response to that wasn't what I would think would put us in position to respond accordingly. We reacted. There was some chaos on the sideline. And when that happens, like, you're just not going to play good connected defense. You start worrying about the previous play instead of the play that's in front of you. We addressed it. We faced it head on. And in the midst of the storm, we righted the ship, right? Whatever happens, happens. We started the ball rolling. We didn't have the best response to adversity right after the punt situation, and we give up a touchdown. But through that, I know that they understood the point. Going into that game, I said it was all about trust. Trusting one another, trusting the coaches that you know your job and you go out and execute at a high level. Got punched in the face early, and that trust flew out the window. We got it back in the second half, right? Even we gave a touchdown early in the second half, right? Guy scrambled all along with something like that. But the response was much different. They came back, we talked, we worked through our issues, and we were able to go out there and get it stopped. That's what needs to continue to happen. But I'm not going to know about those things as a coach with this particular group until they happen, right? And on a short week, we learned a lesson. So hopefully those lessons carry over this week and they understand like what it takes to play connected team defense. And to build on that, whether it's takeaways, stopping the run, like I'm old school. I may sit up here, I'm a nice guy, I smile, I do all those things, but all of our problems that we need to solve can be solved through violence. Yeah, they want to legislate it out of the game, but we play defensive football. And in defensive football, at some point, you draw a line in the sand and you say, I'm going to set the edge. I'm going to stick my helmet under this guy's chin, and I'm going to set the edge. I'm going to violently take the ball away. And that's what we need to do. With a steely-eyed focus, with resolve, with resiliency, and we're going to stop people. And I'm determined, we're all determined for that to happen.
Goosebumps. Like, I mean, if that was the only thing I knew about Anthony Weaver was that clip, nothing else. If that was the only thing I knew about Anthony Weaver, I'd hire him right on the spot for anything I need done.
Lead me into battle,
Lead
Anthony.
me into battle.
Let's do it.
Like, violence, he's like, they're trying to legislate it out of the game, but that's not how we're going to play football.
He started talking about violence, too. It got him going a little bit more than he already was.
And and then you also look at, like, given the situation, in the middle of a game, he's having to navigate a stormy, chaotic situation. And, like, he's over there and he's telling us how he handled it, right? He has given you a specific example of how he handled it, what they hope they learn from that experience, and also understands this is a relatively new defensive team that hasn't really learned how to play together, but he believes that they are going to be determined to make this thing work.
Well, exactly. And you look at that and, like, there's going to be people that, hear Anthony Weaver get brought up. They'll look and they'll be, well, look at the Dolphins' defensive rankings this year. They, how can we hire this guy? Well, there's context for everything. We always talk about it. And he provided some of that. Also, lots of turnovers from Tua this season. Miami's offense is ranked like 26th in time of possession. So defense is on the field more often than not in a game. I mean, this is a guy that, like you said, he's a leader of men. You can just tell. And also, he's someone that shows that, he can work through adversity. He can work through adverse circumstances and find the other side of it.
I mean, how often do we get that kind of insight and see what a man's really made of?
You really don't.
And guess what? Well, I got another clip that's going to give you goosebumps again. That's going to tell you why he was capable of doing it. He was asked on being a coach in the eye of the storm and why he feels he was able to navigate that storm.
Turned around. Yeah, that's easy. I try very hard to stay calm in the chaos. I'm not a guy that's going to run around screaming, yelling, all those things, because I think that players are a reflection of their coach. So when they weren't a reflection of me, obviously I started to get upset. I talked to him very calmly and just pointed out to him. And usually when you point it out, they see it, right? Because they feel it. And particularly when it's happened with some of our older guys, again, who haven't played a lot of football together, that then influences the younger players. And then they start to panic and not play with technique and fundamentals and all those things. But as soon as it happens, as a coach, if you have a level of awareness, you can point it out to them and you can fix it in real time. And you don't have to waste a game. And I feel like that's what we did. And moving forward, that's the expectation. You can't go out there and just start yelling and screaming at each other during the course of a drive. How can you be successful with that? I gave him the example, like, when my second child was born, we're in the room with my wife, and I'm with my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law, and then the umbilical cord gets wrapped around my son's throat. So like that, like in a very calm situation, it goes from 0 to 100. And the doctors come rushing in and it is panic. They're flipping my wife over, and my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law in that moment, they're just, I see it on their faces, like they're just distraught. Now, how would that situation have went if I started to panic? And it was like, doctors, what are we gonna do? No, I stood there, I grabbed my mother-in-law, and I hugged her, and I said, we're gonna be all right. We got good doctors here, they got this. And we were calm in the middle of the storm, and everything turned out okay. Football's no different. The sideline's no different. But this particular group needs to be taught that. And as a coach, that's my job, both to make sure we're sound from an X and O standpoint, from a technique and fundamental standpoint, and then a response to adversity. We need to learn how to respond to adversity better. And I'm hopeful, and I do believe that happened in that Buffalo game.
Woo!
Could he move up in your rankings before the show ends?
It's going to be a big letdown. We should have gone 1, 2, 3 because I don't know how you top that. He relays a personal story. He talks about how the players take on the personality of their coach. He talks about that this is a young team and what he needs to teach them, and he says that nothing is solved by just going crazy on the sidelines all the time. Nothing is solved by exasperating the chaos. The dude gets it. There's just no other way around it. That dude gets it. That is a football dude. I wish Blaine was here to hear those clips. We'll have to play those for Blaine when he comes back. But coming up next, I don't know how I'm going to top that, to be honest with you.
Well, they're your number two,
my number one coming up next. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045. We kind of screwed ourselves by going to Anthony Weaver, number 3. In fact, we had a phone call during the break. What did that phone call say?
He said he had just started listening to the show for that last segment and heard, caught the end when Anthony Weaver was speaking, and he said he wanted him to be the next guy. Or he was very intrigued by him, I guess, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, hey, Anthony Weaver changing lives. A lot of people moved him up the ranks, and it's going to be hard to really top, like, the motivational side of Anthony Weaver and what that could be for a team, a young team. He has kind of that, a lot of people in the chat said, that assassin's mentality, a little bit like Cam Ward, just saying.
I mean, like I told the caller, I said, we're trying to start a campaign, get more eyes and ears on Anthony Weaver so, we can make him potentially the next guy.
You never know. Okay, number 2.
This better be good. You set the bar really high.
It's going to be really high. Number 2 is Chris Shula. And I love when Chris Shula is talking. He did a really long form podcast sit down with the Green Light Pod on Chris
Long. Yeah.
And Chris Long, terrible podcast host. I don't know, maybe this was just an off day, but it was not very good. That's beside the point. But when you watch Chris Shula speak about his players or speak about defense, like you see that Sean McVay excitement, right? Like when Sean McVay talks football, that is a football nerd, right? Like that dude loves talking ball. And you see it with Chris Shula. His back had to hurt because he remained like engaged and sitting forward and all that kind of stuff. And he loves talking ball. And I think why I also like Chris Shula is that he really subscribes to explaining the why behind things. And when Chris Shula is talking about that, that's really important because he's coached many different positions, but Chris Shula on the why and getting full buy-in from his players is important.
So important from a big picture perspective. Like that's why I love to meet with the unit, and it's like, some things might not always apply, but like, as long as it's like, you're not wasting their time, you keep it short. It's like 10, 15 minutes. And, there's just more ownership in the plan. And I think that's what, you kind of get full buy-in from that. And, we've brought in guys that everybody we have on our defense is smart, above the line smart. Like you can talk to them almost like you talk to a coach where, and guys like that want to know the why. They don't want to just be told what to do and, hey, I'm going to go do that, and that's what's fun is because then you get feedback and then, oh, shit, you might have a good idea on a Thursday practice. Like, hey, why don't we do it like that? And that's what it started getting to, all the dialogue. It was like Mike Hoyt. I'd walk into my office and I'd have all these little drawings of games and stunts. It was Mike Hoyt would be in here kind of drawing all this stuff up.
I mean, like the why. He wants his players to be smart and above the line smart. Like, I don't know, like this dude kind of gets it, and that's what they draft. I mean, you go and look at the players that they draft. I mean, they got like guys like Quentin Lake, Emmanuel Forbes, Nate Landman, some undrafted free agents, some draft picks. They got all kinds of guys on the defense, but they all know what they're supposed to be doing. So I'm all in on some Chris Shula.
Real quick, I hate to go back to our good buddy Anthony Weaver, but I got another call who he didn't want to be on the show, but passed it along. He first joked and said, was that Anthony Weaver or John Cena? I couldn't tell. Sounded very familiar. And he said, I'm all aboard the Anthony Weaver train.
There you go. Just more Anthony Weaver.
I think he may need to get moved up before the show.
He may need to get moved up my power rankings. Just live on the show, just moving him up above maybe Chris Shula and number 1. Here's Chris Shula on what coaching different defensive positions have taught him, because he's been a defensive line coach, a linebacker coach, a defensive backs coach, and obviously defensive coordinator.
No, as a player, I was a linebacker, so that's always kind of been my home base and kind of, where you feel most comfortable at. But I've just been lucky to coach at every single level where you kind of figure out the problems kind of throughout. And I think it just has naturally happened throughout my coaching career. It's kind of one of those things where you just kind of get lucky and you kind of have the ability to move around. And my first year in the NFL, I was the QC with the Chargers, and every position coach had an assistant position coach, and the defensive line was the only one that didn't. And I had never been in a D-line room, never done anything with pass rush, nothing, knew nothing about it. And I was able to just kind of go be a fly on the wall in that room, help out in indie drills. And then, we hired Giff Smith as our D-line coach. He's our D-line coach now and one of our, obviously one of my closest friends, closest mentors in coaching. And, that kind of started it. And then the ability when you come back to, now you come up to LA with Sean, you're working as assistant linebackers under Joe Barry, and he gives you a lot of autonomy to kind of run your own drills, do stuff. And then you kind of break off. You have outside backers, which is essentially like coaching an edge player, like a D lineman. Yeah. Then we get a Raheem Morrison and you move to inside backers, so you start to kind of feel that level and you're like, okay, I'm at home. This is my comfort level. Here we go. Mm-hmm. Then next thing you know, the next year you move back to DBs and you got Jalen Ramsey in the room. You got some veteran guys in there where you got to be on your stuff. And it's always fun. Every single position is just fun to learn and really to work through the problems and understanding what those coaches go through, and the hardest things for those guys, solving the problems with the players.
I mean, that's just a guy that, again, he's coached. I know he's only been at the Rams. And listen, there's a lot worse places to pull a coaching staff from than the Rams. But he's been everywhere on the Rams, is now a defensive coordinator for the Rams, but he's coached all the positions. Like, that is important because that's different personalities, different play styles, different parts of the defense that you're teaching. There may be, outside of my number one, there may be very few people that understand almost at an intimate level every part of the defense. And I think that's why Chris Shula has been able even to basically, when they lost Aaron Donald, they obviously haven't really missed a beat. And they're still getting a lot of pressure. They got Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, young players. He's been able to teach them to do that. Here is Chris Shula on coaching the defensive backs and seeing through their eyes specifically.
How fluid you have to be. Like those guys are the ones that, like, when the ball goes up in the air and it's on SportsCenter, those guys are the ones that are giving up, that people see giving up touchdowns and things like that. And there's a lot of problems to work through in the back end. But the benefit that you have is you have space and time and you have the ability to communicate. Where it's interesting is there's a lot of plays, whether you're inbound draft guys or you're, just reviewing film, there's a lot of plays where, it doesn't really matter who's out there in the back end. It doesn't get, it's a run play and it doesn't get through the D line. But those plays that, where they're attacking down the field and they're attacking your core coverages and you're isolated down the field, it's a different feeling back there. And then, kind of vice versa from the D line perspective is you can be judged on every single play. It's a one-on-one pass rush or you're taking on a certain run block and it's man-on-man every single play. And so that's kind of the different feel between the positions.
I mean, again, it's kind of like Anthony Weaver. I know it's probably not as motivating or makes you run through a brick wall kind of deal like Anthony Weaver clips were, but that's a guy that just gets it and understands.
He seems more like a cool dude that just knows ball.
It's
really
like
knows
Sean
ball.
McVay. He's like the defensive version of Sean McVay because I feel like even when you look at him and he just kind of reminds you a little bit of Sean McVay, and I think he's just a guy that will be able to understand and relate to almost every position and how it works. And even Sean McVay, we won't play the clip, but even Sean McVay talks about, Chris Shula's willingness to put players in position to succeed. He's done the same thing. He talks about how he wants them in run defense to play a gap and a half. Like everybody plays a gap, but everybody knows you play a gap. So the offenses want you to play just one gap on run fits, but we play a gap and a half and really muddy it. He talks about how they specifically study chips because he lets his young players know, hey, now that they know who you are, Jared Verse, you're going to see a lot more chips. So we're going to study the chips and the tendencies of each team. We have a notebook. Study those so that you can get around those to be prepared for them because guess what? Even if you're chipped, guess what? That means the play is likely designed to hold the ball longer and have deeper routes. So we still need you to be fighting and motivated and all that through these chips, even when you're double teamed.
See, and those are the finer, more intricate details of the game that people don't, it's not the main things you're going to be looking at, from a coach or, in a game when you're watching a game. But those are the things that, like you're saying, can create big plays, prevent big plays from happening, and for a coach to have that understanding and that, willingness to go into that depth of that understanding is big time.
Yeah. Let's go to the phones before I give you my number one. Let's go to Sean in Murfreesboro. Sean, you're on with Cover 2.
Yeah, I think you guys have done a great job with summing up both of these coaches. I think it's all going to come down to what the Titans want, and I think I can sum up the differences between Weaver and Shula because, like you said, they're pretty similar in certain aspects. But I think Anthony Weaver's that motivator, whereas Chris Shula is just a thorough coach. And I think it's going to come down to, do the Titans want to motivate their players, or do they want to educate their players and actually make them better, start focusing on development, or just kind of that hype you up, get you to run through a brick wall, kind of that style of play calling, or do they want more of a Sean McVay coach on the defensive side of the ball like Chris Shula? So just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to kind of put it, too. I mean, they're obviously two different, style of coaches.
I don't want to put a damper on Sean because that was a great call, and he made great points there. Who knows if the Titans are even looking at these? If that's going to even make the final cut.
We've heard Shula name mentioned. Out in public in many places. I've only heard Anthony Weaver truly connected based on Braden's sources, but Braden's sources are pretty good.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm just worried that neither of these guys would make the final cut, so to say, but I'm hoping they will.
You're
I think they're very
hoping
deserving.
that, listen, how many people have we won over with Weaver fever?
That's right. Or, I don't know if we can say what Stoney was saying.
No, we cannot definitely say what Stoney was saying.
Right.
Either of the things Stoney said in the chat, but Christoforo said Weaver fever is spreading. Surely if he gets in front of them, it's the same thing.
He'll make a big impression. But Sean is right. That is a thing you have to decide. Do you want that motivator more, just kind of alpha male like Anthony Weaver, or do you want, like a Mike Vrabel, or do you want the more Sean McVay, Chris Shula style, kind of thorough, probably more, a little more relatable to players? Not saying Weaver isn't, he certainly is, but, just that different type of guy.
Why not both?
Well,
and that's why we're at my number one. Why not get both? Why not get Jeff Hafley, Green Bay defensive coordinator? He's been a head coach for 4 years over at Boston College. He's been able to be with the young kids, helped motivate Zay Flowers. He's been now at Green Bay and has had to put together a defense with Micah Parsons, a defense without Micah Parsons. He's been able to motivate. He's been able to change, evolve, adapt. This dude is like Chris Shula and Anthony Weaver together.
Now, real quick.
Go ahead.
I'm not trying to rain on your parade at all.
You already are.
Based on some of the conversations we're having this week, this needs to be something that gets done pretty quickly, don't you think?
It does.
Based on another job opening?
Cannot, but Green Bay typically does choke in the playoffs. So
that's true, but I meant based on another job opening that's out there that you think he might be interested in.
Well, that's the thing. The one bad thing about Jeff Hafley is that he is a devout Jersey boy. That's where he was born, where he was raised. It's where his mom still lives 15 minutes from the Giants facility. They grew up Giants fans. They are Giants. When Green Bay played the Giants, he bought 30 tickets for friends and family. Bought them. So, this is a guy that, unless he hates Joe Shine, which is a good chance, it's him or Lou Anarumo for that job. So we may be talking Jeff Hafley for no reason. But I would be doing everybody a disservice and a disservice to myself to not say that he's my number one candidate for the Tennessee Titans. You'll hear why coming up next. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
Want to know about a place where European Auto Repair doesn't feel like European Auto Repair? Well, hey, as Blaine Bishop tell you, the moment you walk into Eurofix, you'll notice Eurofix is not your typical greasy garage. Waiting rooms are really clean, comfortable, and inviting with snacks all over the places. Place and service areas are spotless. Why? Because Eurofix cares about everything from how you are treated to how your vehicle is treated. Every repair comes with a rock-solid 3-year, 36,000-mile nationwide warranty on all repairs and that Eurofix performs, and at below-dealer pricing. And you don't have to put up with the dealer pricing or get ghosted when you're waiting for a call back or even in the waiting room. Eurofix fixes everything European, plus rental cars are available with every appointment. Locations all over the state of Tennessee, Nashville, Franklin, Belmead, Murfreesboro, Mount Juliet, and more to come. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can check them out online at myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com.
Cover two, with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045. The next Titans head coach needs to be able to evolve, needs to be able to adapt, utilize the skill sets, emphasize consistency and hard work. And that's what Jeff Hafley does. And he does it with energy. He does it with common sense. And that's what I love about Jeff Hafley. And he has the experience. I know that it's not NFL head coaching experience. But being a head coach in college level, pretty much nowadays, he knows that there's going to be extra responsibilities besides just coaching. Most of his staff is spread out across the NFL from Boston College. So he could build an impressive staff. And he's showing that he can get it done at the NFL level. Let's hear from Jeff Hafley on year 2 of being Green Bay Packers defense and the evolution of the team.
First, I would say, I'm proud of the way the guys played in year 1, right? The thing that I'm most proud of, I do believe we got better. And I think we played our best football late in the season. And that was the most important thing to me. Year 1, you're figuring out the system, you're figuring out the players. Can we get better each week? But probably the biggest thing is, I thought we were playing really hard at the end of the year. Like, we were really physical. We were really running to the ball. Guys were playing confident. Guys were communicating. And I just felt like we came alive. And that's probably the thing. Throw out the numbers, the statistics, where we were. I think we played harder than our opponents at the end of the year. And we were more physical. And that's what I'm most proud of and appreciate the most of the guys. Expectations, in a perfect world, you want to get back to where you left off as fast as possible and build from there. So how fast can we do that, right? We have guys who have played in the system. We have some new pieces we need to add. We need to evolve. We can't just do the same thing, say, here's the playbook, this is what we're running. No, we're a different team. It's a different year. Offenses are going to evolve. We have to evolve. I would say I would like us to be more consistent. Okay, there's a lot of things we did do well, but I think the consistency needs to improve. Certainly, I need to improve, looking at myself personally, how I called games, what I called, when I called it, how I got to certain things. Can I get there faster? My relationship with the players in year 2, I feel like there's kind of a trust built, so we can the relationship, I think, can get even better. But to me, it's how fast can we get to where we finish the season and then build from there and evolve and be more consistent.
That's what you want to hear. That should be the message every year from every head coach out there, and it's really not. He knows that offenses evolve faster than defenses. He has to evolve with it. He wants to get to where they left off faster this year. Not take a whole year or take 10 games to get there. And then once we get to there, we're going to build off on top of that. So that's what you want to hear. Here's Jeff Hafley on utilizing the skill sets of his players.
I think as you guys have gotten to know me, it's about taking the skill set and putting it to use rather than saying, this is our defense, where is he going to play? So we got to get creative and figure out what he can do well. How much can he handle in his first year? Right? How much can we teach him? So we're trying to put him in this room and then put him in this room, and he's a sharp guy, but we don't want to overload him, so then he gets on the field and he's thinking, because then he's not going to be playing fast and he's not going to be ready to play. Does that make sense? So I think it's our job, though, to get him ready to see what he can do to help us win football games. But I don't just see him as a DPR and a special teamer. I've watched him closely, and I see a skill set that we have to figure out how to put it to use. And that excites me, right? That's the fun thing about coaching.
He was talking about Colin Oliver, who was a rookie that they had specifically asked about, but that gives you his overall philosophy. Like, yeah, we got to get our system to flow with the players that we got. We got to make sure that they think fast. I go back to what Anthony Campanelli said, who happens to be a Jeff Hafley protege. So I'm not surprised they're both speaking the same language, but he said, players thinking sound bites, not sentences. If you're thinking, you're stinking, is what they kind of say. Like, that's what you want. Let's go to Jeff Hafley on consistency and hard work.
Consistency and hard work. When I've come in here and I knew there were going to be hard questions, I haven't changed how I approached answering them or talking to you, or my mood doesn't change. And this, yeah, I'm with you. We just played a really good game against the Eagles, right? We have a lot more football left to play. We're going to play a lot of football. All right, I'm confident of that. Regardless of what happens next week, the week after, I'm not going to change how I am around you. I'm not going to change how I am around the players. I'm going to be the same guy. I'm going to demand. I'm going to be upbeat. I'm going to be consistent, right? Now, if I need to make changes and adapt and evolve like I've talked to you about, then I need to do that. I mean, that's our job, right? And that's what we've tried to do. And if we need to figure out how to put players into better situations to make plays and switch things up, then we need to do that. But like, all joking aside, it's not going to change how I act, how I walk around, how I talk, how I coach, and how I treat these players. Confidence and belief and consistency, I think, are really, really crucial in this whole thing, and that's not going to change with me. And I think that goes back again to my time as a head coach when I've seen both ends of this, that's the key. I mean, that's how our players have to react. And watch, I got confidence that our offense is going to go out, and this is no disrespect to the Giants, and we're going to score a lot of points. I mean, that's one of the best head coaches in all of the NFL and one of the best play callers, who I still hate going against in 2 minutes like we do today, because he's really hard to defend. And they're going to get going. I mean, 2 weeks ago, we were talking about what we did against the Pittsburgh Steelers on offense. So everything, we're going to be okay. But I'm not changing how I am, so you can't bring me down today.
I mean, all three of these guys I brought up, Jeff Hafley, Chris Shula, Anthony Weaver, they just get today's NFL better than most coaches you hear talk at the podium. They get the media. They get why the media is asking these questions. They understand fans' frustrations. They also know pretty much. I saw Jeff Hafley recall a play against Aaron Rodgers back when I think Jeff Hafley was with the Browns as defensive backs. No, it was with Richard Sherman. And he was defensive backs coach for Richard Sherman. He called the exact play. And someone on YouTube this is about 10 or 12 years later. I think it's Seattle versus Green Bay. And he, in some playoff game, and he recalls it, and they're showing the play as he's calling it, like, he's at a press conference. The YouTuber clipped the play underneath his press conference, and he nailed it.
That's incredible.
And it's incredible recall.
That's the stuff, like we see Sean McVay's got it. That's the stuff you can use and take with you as a head coach.
Yeah.
Those situations come in handy.
Those are the situations, and that is why Jeff Hafley's my number one. And he could bring Brian Angelichio, who is a tight ends coach under Minnesota, who's been there for a while, and their pass game coordinator. He can bring people from his time at San Francisco, his time with the Browns back in the day. Adam Stanovich, right? He can bring him, who is a play caller over there, or not the play caller over there, but he's got so many connections for defensive coordinators, for offensive coordinators, that he could pull from anywhere. And that's why Jeff Hafley is probably, outside of Mike McCarthy, I think Jeff Hafley's the safest bet. The only issue with Jeff Hafley is that the biggest risk that you take on hoping for Jeff Hafley is that he's going to go to the Giants.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, that's going to be the question, but after today, I think I'm all in on Weaver Fever, and I'm surprised you didn't move up your list.
Okay, we're going to put Weaver Fever at 2. He's not going to overtake Jeff Hafley.
I got you.
But if the Titans do miss out on Jeff Hafley, Anthony Weaver is not a consolation prize.
That's a winner right there.
He's a prize fighter.
That is a winner.
There you
Leads
go.
you into the eye of the storm right there.
Yeah. Oh, just real quick, I do want to throw out there Anthony Campanelli, defensive coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars, as a dark horse candidate. What I like about him is that he's also coached wide receivers and tight ends while at Rutgers for multiple years. So he's coached on the offensive side of the ball, as well as learned under Jeff Hafley, has carried over that stuff to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are one of the best defenses, who are going to face the Tennessee Titans. And you can hear the preview with me and Blaine and Buck Sunday on the Lee Company Countdown to kick off.
Hey,
and then
you'll be
Titans
here. I won't be alone this Sunday.
You won't be alone. I'll be here.
I love that. Hey, and also, 16 clips we got through?
16 of the 22 clips.
Is that a cover 2 record?
We didn't get to any of the Anthony Campanelli clips, and there was one Jeff Hafley and one Chris Shula.
Well, it's Jags week. Screw him.
It's Jags week.
Right?
There you go.
Come on.
All right. 3HL's coming up next. It's Slay and Lucas. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone. And in the meantime.
And in between time.
Peace.
Stay safe tonight.